You're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I have a hole in my stomach!
I can't go back.
Welcome to the She Became Visible podcast. I'm your host, Renee Steelman. This podcast is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It's all the stories of all the women who one day knew that it was time to remember who they were, who they are, and stand up and be seen. Welcome to She Became Visible. We're going to give this another crack. I don't know if any of you noticed. I think there were 12 people that may have noticed, but I did this podcast live on the 13th, whenever that was, Wednesday, and there was no sound. I don't know why. But I've decided to do it again, only this time I'm going to record it just in case. That way it doesn't go live on YouTube with absolutely no sound. So hopefully you can hear me. My Rodecaster says that you can. So let's see if we can get this started. So thank you for joining me today on She Became Visible. And we're going to talk about, and this is specifically geared towards my hopeful 100% demographic, which is women over the age of 60. And I don't mind if men join in, but the subject that we're going to talk about is primarily directed towards women. And I have to tell you a story to get things started. I recently attended a retreat, I guess you could call it. It wasn't something where people stayed overnight or anything like that. But I had met a wonderful person at another retreat that I had gone to in Colorado, and this was called Silver Sisters. So most of the women that were there at this retreat had let their hair go gray, and it was fabulous. These women were just fabulous, and it was a very fun retreat. And they had a financial expert and all kinds of people that were the keynote speakers, or not keynote, but they're various speakers. So I met this wonderful woman there from California, and she mentioned to me that she was going to be coming to Phoenix to attend another retreat. And I said, I'll meet you there. I live in Arizona. I'd love to see you again. So I paid an exorbitant amount of stupid money to sign up for this retreat, forgetting that we were going to be traveling. And so the retreat was held on a Saturday and a Sunday, and we weren't coming back until Saturday. So I missed one day altogether. But I walked in on Sunday, and the person who was conducting the retreat was on stage. Beautiful woman. She's a psychologist and a doctor of psychology. And she, beautiful. She talks about letting her hair go gray. And she has, although she has very salt and pepper hair. So she still has a lot of dark in her hair, but she's definitely let the gray strands come through. And she was talking about self-esteem or whatever. I wasn't quite sure how much I had missed, but I was told that it would break for lunch and that they would be coming back. And so I thought, oh, well, that's good. At least I'll get an afternoon. And come to find out, it was going to go until 7 p.m. So I listened to a little bit, and then we went to lunch, and then we all came back. Fabulous lunch, sat down with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other women that I had never met before, had a fabulous lunch because women share. And that's what I love about women is they share, and they just start telling their personal secrets to strangers that they've never met. But they knew that we were there with a common purpose. And so there was a commonality that they felt comfortable with sharing. So it was really nice. Anyway, great women. And then we went back, and it started out with the psychologist again. She had changed her outfit. And she started talking about self-worth, and she kind of opened it up to the audience with an open mic, which is very scary to do. And a couple of women started sharing their stories. And I noticed that there was a pattern to the testimonials. Um, a little bit of humble bragging at first. I'm a very successful entrepreneur. I've started 3 businesses. I have a store in New York. It's very successful, but I don't know how to find a mate. Anyway, it would start out with a humble brag, but then it would go into, and my question is, but there was one woman in particular that stood up and she just said, I'm really having a hard time finding my self-worth and my self-esteem. And the woman in charge said, well, let's go back. And so she guided this woman back to full-length mirrors that she had in the back. And they played music, so we weren't there we could not hear the one-on-one that she was having with this woman, but obviously this woman was in tears, and the whole audience stood up and they were clapping and they were, I love you. We love you. And I'm like, do you know her? Do you know her? And then they came back and she said some more things. And I thought, and then this is what she said. We're going to break off into groups. And I was like, and I'm out of here, because breaking off into groups is not my thing, especially with women that I've never met before. I don't know why. It's probably the introvert in me. I don't like that. And I was also amazed when I watched these women. She was in the back with that other woman at the mirror for a long time. And I watched the other women and I thought, there's probably 200 women here. There were no women of color. And I thought, why is that? Why are there no Black women in this audience? There were some Hispanic women there, but there were no Black women there. And I thought, why is that? Why is that? So I went to the gym a couple days later and I ran into my friend who's a personal trainer. And I asked her, I said, why is this just a rare thing that I went to? But I've just noticed that the things that I've been to, the woo-woo things that I've been to, because I've been to a few, there's no women of color at these things. And she said, well, we don't need outside validation because we already know we're invisible to the world. So we have to find our value within ourselves because we don't fit the standard beauty culture, and we just know that we're not valued in most of the, let's say, United States Western society. So we have formed our own value. We know who we are. And I was like, that's so true. That's so true. The beauty standards that they hold themselves up to are not white women, 5'10", 120 pound, long, lanky. They know that's not who they are, and they're okay with that. And so they have found their self-esteem within their own culture. And I thought, what is wrong with us? Why are we struggling? Why was this woman struggling to find her value? And she needed 150, I don't know how many were there actually, strangers to validate her, to give her her self-worth. So that was really kind of the inspiration that made me want to do this podcast. I've also found, as a woman in her 70s, that older people in 2024 are still invisible. There's a lot of ageism that still goes on. And even in the community that I'm in right now, which is a ex-fundamental church community primarily, I left a fundamental religion about 4 years ago, and I have kind of climbed on to a lot of the community of other people that have left this religion because we have things in common. And so there's a lot of podcasts out there specifically addressing ex-Mormonism. But I've noticed that the guests that they have on are not older women. They're older men who have reached some kind of status, but there's not a lot of older women. And I think it's because, now this is just me hypothesizing, I have no data to back this up, but I think it's because in the Mormon culture, which is the religion that I left, women's roles were in a supportive nature. It's the traditional wife. Women's roles were to be a wife and a mother. So a lot of women, especially in my demographic, did not seek further education. And even if they did, they took that education that they had and they took it home, and it never left. It never left. And even though education is highly promoted in the Mormon church, for women, the reason why women would get in higher education is so that they could be a better mother to the next generation of children. That was the purpose of a further education, certainly not for employment or anything outside of the home. So women in my demographic don't, a lot of them, and I'm not saying all, obviously, I would say most, a lot, don't have a career with numbers or letters behind their name that gives them value to the world. And this is true even in the ex-Mormon world. Are you an attorney? Do you have a doctorate in history? We will talk to you then. Otherwise, what do you have to say? You have no value. So I find that in my previous community and in my new community and in the world in general. So what is aging gracefully? We're going to go through 5 tips that I think will help you to maybe find your visibility, to find out what your self-worth is without having to have someone else validate you or tell you what your self-worth is. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start out with number 1, 5 ways to become visible. The number 1 thing that I have listed is my husband, ... What does that mean? Let me explain. I'm retired now, but I was a professional interior designer. And one of the most startling things for me was when I would go into someone's home and the woman would say to me, you know, my husband and I just went through the Street of Dreams and these model homes were just beautiful. I love that kitchen and I want to paint my kitchen red. But my husband said I can't. And I'm like, your husband said you can't? Where is your husband right now? Oh, he's at work. I said, oh, okay. So did you have any control over his office? Oh, no, I don't have any control over his office. So did you tell your husband what color you thought he should paint his office? Oh, no, I would never do that. But it's okay for him to tell you what color to paint your kitchen. You don't have any input on that? Well, he said he doesn't like it and blah, blah, blah. So that was eye-opening for me because I have a husband who trusted my talent and my gifts and said, I don't know what she's doing. I could come home and the entire house could be, the furniture will be moved around and all of the walls will be a different color. I don't know what she's going to do, but I appreciate her talent and I trust her to do that. That's my experience with my husband. The other thing that I found was second marriages. Women who were going into homes that were previously occupied by the ex-wife and now was a bachelor pad, and now she's moved in. And the new wife said, I don't want this furniture. This is your ex-wife's furniture, and I don't want this furniture. And their response was, well, this is actually my mother's. And my mother has had this buffet set in her home for 30 years, and we're not getting rid of it. So he's got his ex-wife and his mother. So 2 dominant women that do not exist now, but they're going to take dominance over the new wife. She was in tears. I was only there for like an hour. The woman was in tears. because he was not going to budge. And I'm like, I've never experienced this. Okay, number 3 is my experience with my fellow Silver sisters online. And they will post things like, my husband told me if I don't dye my hair, he's going to leave me. My daughter told me if I don't dye my hair, I'm not invited to the wedding. I cut my hair and my husband says he hates it. And I want to just explode because it's like, why? Why is this man's opinion stronger than your opinion of how you should style or color your hair? Why is that a priority over your feelings of how you should wear your hair? So I think that's where we need to begin, because especially women in my demographic, again, this seems to be a major ordeal. I'm going to move my mic. I'm just terrified that there's not going to be any sound here. So I want you to really take this under consideration. And I understand that there's only so many hills we're willing to die on. And I understand conflict. And in some homes, there's certain things that it's not worth starting a conflict. But I think your hair and your body, especially right now, we're talking about that in the political world, is yours. And you need to take back your autonomy and your self-worth by claiming yourself back. So that would be my first tip especially as we age. And so I really want to emphasize, if anything that you say, whether it's your hair, your clothing, your style, your voice, your hobbies, if there's anything in those categories that you want to pursue, but the argument starts out with my husband, then you have a problem. And that's something that you will personally have to address. And I understand compromise, and I understand not always getting what we want in things. That's called values and partnership. But when it comes to your hair and your physical body and even your clothing, those are choices that you get to make, that no one else gets to make for you. Okay, let's go on to number 2. My style. Let's talk about your style. Now, many women, in particular women of my age, really don't know what their style is. And if you are over the age of 60, you will remember, golly, I don't even remember when it was, 80s, 90s, when the whole thing came out with color coding. You're a summer, or you're an autumn, or you're a winter, or you're a spring. And women jumped on that. They love that. There was another thing that came out where they would classify you for your style. And they would say, oh, you're classic, or you're Victorian, or I can't even remember what the other ones were. But I really liked that, because I could see that in myself, and I could see that in my daughters. I have a daughter that is a lot like me, where we look better in more of just a classic tailored look. My other daughter, she's able to pull off a more feminine lace type look. And there's no explanation. I'm telling you, you could put on a lacy Victorian style dress with baby doll sleeves, and she would look fabulous. And my other daughter and I would look ridiculous. We would look like some kind of Betty Davis, Baby Jane thing. It just didn't fit. And so I think you need to learn what your style is. And another thing you might want to take under consideration is, have you ever purchased something, put it on, gone to an event, and the whole time it's almost like it's made out of scratchy wool? You're so uncomfortable. It's just not you. I've done that before. And I came home, I took it off. I said, I'll never wear this again. I don't know why. It's not me. I didn't feel comfortable in it. And I don't know why I bought it. I think I just got caught up in whatever the trend was. So those are things you need to start paying attention to and noting. Now let's go to, let me see if I can Okay. Part of your style is understanding what your neckline is. Is that it makes shopping so much easier. When you go into a store and you're looking at racks and racks of clothing, if all you see are boat neck or scoop neck or whatever neckline you've decided is best for you, I'm not even going to look at it. It's like, nope, 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 nope. Oh, V-neck. Let me look at this. Take it out, look at it, compare it. Is the color right? Is the texture right? Whatever. And so once you know what kind of neckline looks best on you, it eliminates so many choices. And you don't start buying things that for some reason you didn't understand why they didn't look good on you. Come to find out the neckline was wrong. And the other thing I wanted to mention is when you're talking about style, the rules of interior design are very similar to the rules of fashion. You have balance, you have texture, and you have visual weight and color. Those are all things that you take under consideration when you're doing interior design, and they also apply to fashion. Sometimes you'll wonder, why do these shoes not look right with this outfit? Well, it's because they're too heavy for the light weight of the clothing that you're wearing. Maybe you're wearing a pair of linen pants, but you wanted to wear a pair of suede shoes. And you're like, why does this look off? Well, suede is heavy. It kind of, when you think about it, it seems to be more of a fall winter type look. And you're trying to pair it with something that's light and airy, which would be associated more with spring or summer. And so those things all fall under the categories of balance. And we're going to talk a little bit more about balance. Let me go back and go to the next slide. Okay, when we're talking about balance, I know you've heard this probably to nauseum, but what is the shape of my body? Now, my body is more this shape. It's more of a rectangular shape. I don't have a very big waistline. I'm so jealous of women that I walk behind and they've just got that perfect waist and then their hips just come out to a beautiful round bum. And I'm never going to have that. It's just not me. This is the more curvy, balanced body style. And this is kind of that typical hourglass style. So you have to find out what is your body type. And then that will start to restrict the amount of clothing that you look at because you realize, I can't wear that. That doesn't work well for me. And so this is just an example of my body in an outfit. I love wide leg pants. I feel like it balances out the fact that I don't have a small waist. It gives the impression that I have a small waist, even though I don't. And so think I forgot to put, okay, we're going to talk about this next, but let me take this away. So in interior design and in also in architecture, there's what they call the golden ratio. And what they have found is that if you break something up into thirds, what visually is the most appealing is a 2/3 to 1/3 balance. And this is true in fashion. So if you break your clothing up into heavy on the top, lighter on the bottom, or lighter on the top, heavier on the bottom, you're creating that 2/3 to 1/3 balance. Now, my next slide, please take under consideration, these are all my own opinions, all right? If this is something that you love and you feel so good about yourself when you buy an outfit from this particular store that I'm going to talk about next, that's what we're going for. We're going for you feeling good about what you're wearing, but I'm just going to give you some personal advice. All right, Chicos. Any advice that I could give you, if you don't listen to anything else, I would say the only thing you should buy at Chico's is jewelry. They have the most fabulous jewelry, but do not buy clothing. When I'm talking about the 2/3 to 1/3 ratio, look at this outfit that they have in their window. This was their window display. This woman is completely cut in half. She is green on the top and white on the bottom. Now, granted, she doesn't have on shoes, but let's say she has on a pair of white sandals to go with this. This completely cuts her in half. What is being accentuated in this outfit is the fact that she has, I don't know what's being accentuated. Not her waist, not her bust line, not her hips, and it's cutting her off at the calf, which is shortening her legs. Every pair of capri pants that you see on here, look at what it does to the leg. It completely cuts your leg off, makes it look shorter and squattier. And especially, I can't bring it up, but even look at this example. This is a very thin model who knows how to pose, but the fact that this cut right here has cut off her leg makes her legs look short and stumpy. Now, if you put a pair of athletic shoes with that, it's even worse. So there is never a pair of capri pants. The only time I've seen capri pants look good is Anne Margaret. I'm sorry. She's the only person in the world that I've ever seen that can pull off capri pants. And honey, if you look like Anne Margaret, but you know what? Even in that case, she's following the 2/3 rule. Because if you remember to Viva Las Vegas, she had on a short, tight little sweater, which was 1/3. The bottom were those fabulous capri pants. And so that's the only person I've ever seen that looks good in that. But everyone else, I've never seen it be visually appealing. It just doesn't complement a woman's body. Capri pants are the worst. And I know that most women think that it's the answer to I can't wear shorts anymore. But are those 3 inches at the bottom really giving you that much more ventilation? I mean, just take those pants all the way to the ankle. If you make them loose and flowy, they're going to give you just as much ventilation. So just stop wearing capri pants. And to go back, let's talk about floral tops. I wish I could make this bigger, but please, floral tops, they just don't work. And I know women love color. They want to do pattern. Not even really, actually, I have a hard time with florals altogether, both in the pants and on the top. So, but the other thing that Chico's sells is they do a lot of tunics. And the example that was shown there on that window display was how really unflattering tunic tops really are. As I said, they don't accentuate any good part of your body. Is it your bust line that you love? Is it your waist that you love? Is it your shoulders that you love? Maybe you have a great clavicle but does it show that? No, it hides everything. And you become very boxy. And the other thing that when I talk about that in fashion, one of the things that Chico's, their marketing secret is they don't put sizes. It's just like 1, 2, and 3. And so women don't feel badly that maybe they've gone up a size because they're still in a 1 or a 0. And so they use that as a marketing tool. And let's all admit, every single store you go into, their sizing is different, right? So you could wear a 4 in one store and you're going to go into a 6 in another store. So we all know that. We all know that sizing is cuckoo. So maybe that's their answer. But they also sell a lot of boxy tops. And the reason they do that is because women of the age, the demographics that they're going towards, have usually gone through menopause, their hormones are cuckoo, and they've developed a very thick middle. And so having a boxy top, they feel, will cover that belly fat that women often struggle with the older that we get. What I have found is I have one jean jacket that I love. I purchased it over 20 years ago. And the reason I love it is because it's tailored to go in at the waist a little bit, not a lot, but it just kind of comes in. It doesn't have that straight boxy look. And it also hits me a little bit below the waistline, but not all the way down to my hips. And so it doesn't give me that cut off boxy look. So what I'm suggesting is if you find something that you love, take it into a tailor. And I want you to know that tailors can be found in almost every strip mall that there is. Alterations are offered everywhere and they're not that expensive. So just to have some kind of a jean jacket tailored to go in a little bit, you're going to be so much happier with that. All right, let's go on. Let's go back to our slide. Let's talk about hair. All right. We know that as we age, one of the side effects of menopause is thinning hair. And if you decide to go gray, I've heard a lot of women talk about the texture of their hair also changes. And I agree with that. I agree with that. I used to be very proud of my hair. I called it a two-twirl, that when I pulled my hair back into a ponytail, I could only wrap the elastic around my hair twice. And I used to think that I had thick hair because of that. But I had a hairdresser point out to me, no, you don't have thick hair. You have thin hair, but you have a lot of it. And when I found that out, it made sense. It's like, that's why as a teenager, I never used conditioner on my hair because it flattened and weighed my hair down. If you have thick hair, you're going in for keratin treatments and you're putting a shining spray on and all of these things to kind of calm your hair down. But in my case, it just flattened my hair down to my head because I have thin hair. I just have a lot of it. Thank heavens. I'm losing some of it. Anyway, so that is one of the things that we struggle with when we get older. But you still have to find a style that maybe is a little bit of what you would think is a younger style for you, because women of my age have been told that over the age of 40, we should all cut our hair. Let me show you something. We're going to move on our slides here. This is my hair, part of my hair journey. Now, I wore my hair in this particular picture in the Rachel for a long time. I loved it. And I was blonde. I was blonde as a child. And of course, as I aged, it became more of that dirty blonde. So I started coloring my hair when I was like freshman in high school. And so I would go to the hairdresser and I would do the highlights and toning and the whole bit. It took forever. But I liked the Rachel. I felt like it was a complimentary cut for my hair, for my face. Well, do you guys remember, I think it was in the early 2000s, when the pixie became very popular and everyone was cutting their hair in that short pixie style. So I decided, what the heck, I'm going to do that too. This is my pixie. Now, I think the difference between this picture and this picture is 20 years. Immediately, I noticed how much older I looked with short hair. And that was very like alarming and let me take this off. And maddening at the same time. The other thing about short hair is it looks great when you first get it done and the stylist styles it, but then, you know, an hour later it starts to flatten out and you're just not happy with it. And if I thought this took a long time, now I've got short hair that has to be trimmed and styled again every 4 weeks. I created more of a problem. So that's just part. I'll give you another example on the next slide. But so this is an example of what I feel cutting my hair actually made me look older. Now, the other thing is the style in general. Do you guys all remember this? This is Kate Plus 8. And for some reason, that style took off. And she was, let me take that off. The problem is that was a specific style and it required a lot of teasing and a lot of people didn't cover the teasing and it also is just something that if you didn't go to a good hairdresser that didn't know how to blend in that stacked bob, there was an obvious shelf of layering that you could see. And so it really took an experienced hairdresser to do a good stacked bob. Also, sometimes the angle was very severe. And again, this came down to the skill of your hairdresser. So it kind of went away and just the regular bob kind of came into fashion. So the problem is we spend half of our year in Utah, and I'm telling you, I still see Kate Plus 8 all over Utah. Heavy highlights, stacked bob, ratted up to the nines. And it's just, they loved it. It was a style that they loved in the 80s and the 90s, and they're not going to give it up. But it ages them and it puts them in an era immediately when you see it. So let me go on to, so right after I got my hair cut, I also decided, well, I'm done with this, procedure. I'm going to let my hair go gray. And what happened was I said to my hairdresser, oh, I'm so tired of this. I think I'm just going to let it go gray. And she said, absolutely not. And that was all I needed to hear for me to go, oh, now I'm doing it tomorrow. And I literally did it the next day. I called up another hairdresser that I had known for a long time that had moved to a different salon. And I said, can you bleach my hair out? I just want to go gray. And she said, yeah, absolutely. So this was the result. I went from that blonde pixie cut to silver. She bleached it out, put on a toner. I was so happy. And when we go back to talking about our husbands, I didn't ask my husband. I didn't ask for permission to cut my hair. I went to the hair salon. I got it done. I walked in the door. He said, whoa, I love that. So now, as I mentioned, I realized immediately that short hair was not a good look for me. It made me look older. I've shown pictures to my girlfriends of me, golly, not that long ago when my hair was still short. And they're like, wow, you look so much older. I'm like, I know. I look like a little trad housewife. And I did. And so I started growing it out. The first thing I did was kind of do an asymmetrical thing. And I liked this. This was kind of fun. It just broke up that short pixie thing a little bit. And then it got to be chin length. I don't like this either. The reason, I have a very wide jaw. What this does is emphasizes the width of my face. And I don't like that at all. Not a good look for me. So this was kind of where I went. I went from, chin length, and then it got to be shoulder length. And then they, kind of did the bob look. And then once I got to be shoulder length, they did put a little angle in there and a little bit of wave. And I was okay with that. But I still wanted to just let it grow. And I'm so much happier with long hair. So no one will ever convince me that you have to cut your hair after the age of 40. That's just bunk. So that's not true. So I would say it's like going to the doctor. Go to 2 or 3 different hairstylists and ask their opinion, and then weigh it out for yourself. And also I want to play this part for you so that you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So listen to this.
Women who feel lost and unmotivated and unhappy, what would you say are the 3 to 5 biggest things keeping them from a life of their dreams?
Holy moly, we're jumping right into that.
Are you kidding me?
We're just going.
How
we're
long
just
have you
going.
known me?
We're just going straight into it, Marie Forleo.
That's what I like.
I'm actually going to narrow it down to one, for the sake of efficiency. And this is a tried and true piece of wisdom because it comes from the Bhagavad Gita that's like 7,000 years old, right? So this is time worn and tested. There's a line in the Bhagavad Gita that says, "It is better to live your own life imperfectly than to live a perfect imitation of somebody else's life," which feels like some influencer just put that on Instagram, like with a really pretty background, but it's from like one of the deepest, most ancient sacred texts. And it's that, like, I think it's that for women. And I know this because I spent my 20s creating a perfect imitation of somebody else's life. And it was note perfect. I mean, it was Christmas card perfect. It was Hallmark Channel perfect. And I was dying inside of it. And
Okay. So this is, I love Liz Gilbert, and we're going to talk about her hair as we're talking about hair, but living a life that you're replicating someone else's life and not being true to yourself is what I'm talking about here. Those of us who grew up in a fundamental religion with men who told us who we should be, what we should look like, how we should sound with our voices, we're imitating someone else. And I see that all the time in the Mormon church for women. They will, if a woman in Utah has a Stanley Cup, every woman in Utah has a Stanley Cup. If a woman in Utah goes to Target and buys a prairie dress, every woman the next Sunday has on a prairie dress. There's just this imitation and not being true to yourself that goes on in high demand cultures that want you as a woman to look, sound, and act in a role that isn't true to who you are. Now, I'm going to fast forward this because she talks about her hair and I love what she says here. So let me see. I want to go to 45. Oop. Okay.
for like who, like, why do I need to be Dewey? Like, why? I can't tell you how much I want to get like a tattoo, like in Gothic thing that's like Thug Life, but it says Hag Life. Like, I'm like, I'm just going to go full Hag Life. Like, and I also thought, and around that time, I spent a week with Byron Katie. And Byron Katie's 82 or 83, like white haired, heavily, like, and it's radiantly beautiful and so captivating. And I just thought, I had this, I mean, maybe this seems very elementary, but I had this thought of like, it is a fundamentally weird thing. It's a weird fear to be afraid of getting older.
Yeah.
Like, that's a weird thing to be in resistance against. Like, what is the fear? Like, what if there isn't it? What if there isn't a fear? What if there just isn't? What if you decide to not buy that story anymore?
Mm-hmm.
And what if I get to keep all my money now? And what if I get to keep all my time now? And what if I just go to Walmart and get a $20 pair of clippers, and that's the last money I'm ever going to spend on my hair? And I buzz my hair once a week over the toilet.
What was the first time? Like, did you do it at home?
I did it at home, and my friend Shankari helped me because she used to be a punk in the 80s because I actually didn't know how to physically do it.
Yes.
Like, so I got a short haircut first. And the other thing was every time I went to my hairdresser, who I love, and I would say, one of these days, I'm just going to have you just shave this off. I kept, like, for years, I've said that to her.
So it was a fantasy. That was kind
For
of like
years.
yes.
And she was like, well, let me just give you a really good short haircut. But a really good short haircut is really hard to maintain.
Yes.
It's harder to maintain than.
Okay, so that's that. And what I love is she says, she has people come up to her and say, oh, I love your hair. I wish I could do that, but I have an odd shaped head. And she always said, what's an odd shaped head? I mean, a head is a head. We all have heads. And who said you have an odd shaped head? But I get that with my gray hair. People say, well, I would let my hair go gray, but it's not that color. I'm like, how do you know? How do you know it's not that color? I didn't know what color my hair was going to be. My father went gray and he had beautiful hair, but he also had really dark, dark brown hair and dark brown eyes. And my brother looks exactly like my father, and he has beautiful gray hair. And he also had dark, dark brown hair and dark brown eyes. I have my mother's coloring, who to this day is a blonde. And I said to her, why are you blonde and I'm gray? Let's talk about that. But she continues to dye her hair, and her and I both have blue eyes and kind of dishwater blonde hair. And so I had no idea what color my gray was going to be, but I didn't care. All I know is I'm going to try this gray thing. And it turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it, but you don't know. Now, I'm not saying shave your head. That's something I would never do. But what Liz is saying there is the amount of time and money she was putting into trying to make her hair look good was not worth it to her. It wasn't worth it to her. It's worth it to me. Okay. I put time and money into my hair because I like my hair. And so maybe that's a choice that you make. Maybe you go to a short punk. I have so many friends, Silver Sisters, that have gone to that fabulous punk look. They look so good in it. So when you're talking about your hair, you got to experiment a little bit and be willing to maybe let go what you were doing back in 1990. That will help you to find out who you are and what your style is. All right, let's go back. Go back, go back, go back. Okay, skin. Let's talk about skin. I get a lot of people asking me about my skincare, and I have to tell you, when it comes to skin and aging and wrinkles, a lot of it is genetic. Now, I should have put a picture up of my grandmother. My grandmother had people tell her all the time how beautiful her skin was. My mother has people tell her all the time how beautiful her skin is. Both of these women never laid out in the sun with baby oil, okay, which is what I did in the 60s. And my mother, I don't think she's ever even been in the sun. She suffers from I think it's an autoimmune disease called Sjogren's. And so being in the sun is just impossible for her. She doesn't sweat. Her tears, she does anything that's a lubricant in the body, her saliva, her tears, her joints, they're not functioning well. So she's never done well in the heat. And so I don't think she's ever been in the sun. So her skin is beautiful. My grandmother, I don't think she ever weighed less than 190 pounds. And that helps. That helps with your wrinkles, is when you got a little fat underneath there. So my grandmother was heavy her whole life, and but her skin looked great. So a lot of it is genetics. The other thing is also facial structure. I have a very wide jaw. I have very deep set eyes. So wrinkles around the eyes are not a big problem. And I don't suffer with hooded eyes because my eyes are set back so deep. So as far as I know, this part of the eye, which women begin to suffer because as they age, could be dropping, but it's just dropping back into the cavern. So I don't know. So those are things that I'm very happy with. However, I never go to bed without washing my face. And for over 30 years, I've used a product called, well, it's from a company called Neostrata, and it's their glycolic acid lotion. I think it's Lotion Plus or something they call it. But Neostrata, and it's a glycolic acid. And I started using that because I took my son to the dermatologist when he was getting into his teen years. And he suggested I use this on him. And this was my severely disabled son who was nonverbal. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to use this on him unless I try it first, because he's nonverbal and he's not going to be able to tell me whether he likes this or not. So I put it on and it kind of burned. It's a glycolic acid. And I thought, no, I can't use this on him, but I'm going to try it. So I started using it. It was amazing. And I used that up until about 3 years ago when I finally switched over to a Retin-A tretinoin cream, which is a Retin-A, and it does have a very drying effect. So I always mix it with oil when I put it on my face. And so I use that every single night. I wash my face every night with a cleansing oil that I get from PCA Skin. I've tried other oils. I don't like that as well. And I don't use sunscreen specifically, but I always put on a foundation that has sunscreen in it. So I don't go outside, especially here in Arizona, without some kind of sunscreen on my face. I've also had, oh golly, I think about 20 years ago, I had a Fraxel laser thing, and that was really fun, but I wish I could do that again. That was really cool. And I have had some brown spots burned off with the, nitrogen stuff that dermatologists use. And I use Botox. Botox is your friend, ladies. I'm sorry. I have a deep 11 right here. And so I have this done. And then she does some things around here, and she does this, I forget what they're called. Every esthetician is screaming right there what it's called, but I have that done as well. So those are my secrets to skincare, but a lot of it, and I have to tell you, as if I lose a lot of body fat, I can see it in my face the older I get. There is a famous quote by a good philosopher. Her name is Tamra Judge. She's a housewife of Orange County, but she made a comment one time and she said, after a certain age, you have to decide on your butt or your face. And I've discovered that. I've been trying to work on my butt, and the more weight I lose, the older I look, because I'm losing a lot of body fat. And that's just as what happens. If any of you are familiar with Kathy Bates, she's just lost over 100 pounds. She looks great. She feels great. But you can see her skin because she was older when she lost the weight. And so she has a lot of loose skin. And I can see my face drooping, as I lose body fat. But I'm, trying to build up visible glute muscles. So dang it, it's always a trade-off, right? And after a certain age, it's a trade-off. So that's the skin portion of it. I go back and forth about wanting to get some kind of deep chemical laser thing, but I don't know. I've seen people that have had it done, and a couple of years later, they don't look any different. So I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go that route. But anyway, regardless. So the last thing on the list is attitude. And I want to show you one thing before we get to that, because that's our final discussion. I want to show you this clip. When we talk about hair and hairstyles, I don't know if any of you have seen this. I think it was Estelle Getty. She was actually the youngest one, the one that played the mother on Golden Girls. She was actually the youngest of all of those women. But the hairstyle, the glasses, the makeup, those were all the things that made her look old. And it's like they say, Jennifer Lopez has been, 30 for 25 years, and a lot of it has to do with their hairstyle. I thought Rue McClanahan, really, that was a big one for me to see how different she looked with that. Let me show you that again. McClanahan. I forget, she was in her 40s, I think, when they were doing Golden Girl. And look how much younger she looked with the longer hair versus that typical old lady haircut. Just amazing. So if you're wondering how much of a difference your hairstyle makes as far as aging goes, there we go. So let's get back into the very last thing on my list, which is your attitude. So attitude is so important. If you, as that woman did at that retreat that I attended, if your self-worth is just in shreds, when you enter a room or go into a new, let's say like when she first got to that retreat and it was full of women that she didn't know. Are you carrying yourself with your shoulders? Are you sunken in? Are you hiding, kind of sliding in along the wallflower, because you don't feel good about yourself, versus walking into a room with the confidence that you know who you are and you are very confident with who you are. And so that's a big statement right there, is just taking back your force and taking back your command. And this goes for any kind of experience, whether you're walking into a meeting at your place of employment, walking into a new experience where you don't know anyone, walking to a neighborhood get together. Anytime you carry yourself with confidence and walk into a room with confidence, it's visual. Your posture and your air of confidence is visual. And so it's really important that you know the old saying, fake it till you make it. Maybe that's what you have to do for a while, is fake it until you start getting that feedback. You start getting feedback, even if it's not a verbal feedback, but it's like oh, wow, she knows who she is type feedback. Then that it will no longer be a fake it till you make it. It'll be a truth. So that's what I have to share with you today. I hope you thought this was fun. And again, these are all just suggestions. You do you. That's the biggest part about becoming visible. As long as you feel good about who you are and how you appear to the world, if that's a confidence thing for you, you are already there. But if you're struggling in any of these areas, I just wanted to share some suggestions with you. So thanks for joining me today. I hope all of you have a great gathering of family next week, whether it's a Thanksgiving celebration or whatever it is. I hope that you will feel loved and wanted and appreciated for all that you are. And we'll talk after Thanksgiving. And I would love to hear some feedback on how your family get together went, right? Right. All right. Let's take this out. Here we go. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.